So, Rev Jenn, if you're out there, best healing to you, best healing wishes to you. It is my privilege to present your words today, and hopefully you have conveyed to me a transforming power. So, we've explored two creation stories today, and here's one more. This is shared by the Reverend Dan Harper. This one is from China, and it's one of a number of creation stories that relate to an egg. At the beginning, there was little difference between heaven and earth. All was chaos, and heaven and earth had no distinct forms like the inside of a chicken's egg. Within this chaos, the god Panku was born inside the egg. Panku grew and grew inside the egg. After 18,000 years, the egg somehow opened up. Some say that Panku stretched himself inside the egg and shattered the egg's shell into pieces. Once the egg had shattered open, the lightest part of it, the part that was like the white of a chicken's egg, rose upwards and became the heavens. The heavier part of the egg, like the yolk of a chicken's egg, sank downwards and became the earth. Panku took a hammer and an axe and cut the connections between the earth and the heavens. Then, to keep the earth and the heavens from merging together once again, Panku stood between them, serving as the pillar that kept them apart. Panku lived within the earth and the heavens, standing between them, and one day he began to transform. He became more sacred than the earth, and he became more divine than the heavens. The heavens began to rise, going up 1 zhang, or about 10 feet each day. The earth began to grow thicker, thickening as 1 zhang each day, and as the heavens rose, so too Panku grew. He grew 1 zhang taller each day, and this continued for 18,000 years. Each day, the earth grew thicker, and the heavens rose higher, and Panku grew taller. At the end of 18,000 years, the heavens had grown very high, the earth had grown very thick, and Panku had grown into a giant. He was now 90,000 li, or 87,000 miles, tall, the distance between the earth and the heavens. Finally, all had become stable. The heavens had stopped rising, the earth had stopped growing thicker. Not everyone agrees what Panku looked like. Some say he had a dragon's head and the body of a serpent, but most say he looked like human beings, except that he was a giant and he had a horn on his head. After uncounted years, Panku felt that he was dying. As he was dying, his body began to transform itself. His left eye became the sun. His right eye became the moon, and his hair and his beard became the sky and the stars. His breath became the wind and the clouds, and his voice became thunder. His arms and legs became the 4 extremes or borderlines of the earth, and his head and torso became the 5 mountains. His blood became the river, his teeth and bones became the rocks and minerals, his flesh became the fields and the soil. His skin became plants, and his sweat became the rain and the dew. So it was that when he died, the body of Panku became the whole universe and everything in it. You know, when human beings first became aware of themselves, and aware that they had a relationship with the world around them, they gazed up at the stars in awe. They watched the sun rise and set, the moon wax and wane, and they wondered why they were there, how the world around them worked, and what happened when they died. Humans sat around fires and in caves. They told stories and stories of how the world formed, stories about the meaning of death, what happened to their loved ones, who moved beyond life. They understood that both bad and good things happened and wondered how to have greater control over what happened and when. Even as we understood more and more of the world around us, we still told stories to help us understand what was happening. Religions grew and split and reformed as different stories were told and new understandings were drawn from these stories. Now, if you're like most people in the United States, there's only one of these creation stories that were familiar to you, and that was the one from the Jewish and Christian faith traditions. You may also know this one. Around 13.7 billion years ago, the entire universe was an infinitesimally small point of heat and density, and then suddenly there was a massive explosion, and the universe expanded in less than a second. The flood of matter and radiation triggered the formation of the stars and the worlds that we know of today, including our Earth and the Sun. As we strive to explain the world around us, there is value in recognizing our part in it. There are several themes that are woven through many different creation stories found across the world. Interdependence is one of the common themes of creation stories. Creation stories illustrate the relationships between nature, humanity, and the divine. As Unitarian Universalists, we often talk about this idea as respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And we're reminded that the creative process is ongoing. We are co-creators. We have the ability to transform and be transformed by the world around us. We have the ability to shape and be shaped by our understanding of and connection to that which we consider divine. Now, in the story I shared at the beginning of this sermon, a God formed the world around us with his death. Lisa told us about God creating the heavens and the earth. And our story earlier this morning told us about many creatures coming together to get what was needed. The planet we live on is sacred and requires us to be good stewards, a job we are admittedly often failing at. What if we remembered as a country, as a world, the earth as sacred? What if we remembered our interdependence? What if instead of treating the earth as a commodity to make money, we treated her as holy ground with which we were in a nourishing relationship? How would it be different if we understood ourselves as co-creating with this planet we lived on? A related purpose of creation myths is to illustrate the cyclical nature of life. Many of these narratives discuss birth, growth, death, rebirth. Where do we see that cycle most plainly in our world? Out there. We create stories to understand our world, to explain our role in it. Creation stories frequently explore the idea of humanity's role and purpose on our planet. The stories tell us of humans created in some way to look like the god or gods who had a hand in their creation. They are used to explain some aspects of our culture. Stories have been used to tell us of humanity's role with other life, about the presence of evil. Creation stories have also been used to explain or perhaps justify social orders. In the story from the Hebrew Bible, Lisa told it today, men and women were created together. But you may not know there are actually two different creation stories in that text. And the other story found there is still used by some today to justify a patriarchal social order. In Genesis chapter 2, the story says that God creates Adam And when God finds that Adam needs company, God takes a bone from Adam's rib to create Eve. Adam thus names Eve woman, as she has come from man. Adam named Eve just as he named the other animals in the garden. So this social order is reinforced later in the story when it is Eve who is tempted by the snake to eat the apple. God then tells Eve, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children, yet your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. So this myth has been used over the centuries to justify man's dominance over women. We see this with other stories as well. Greek mythology includes a story in which the first woman, Pandora, is created as a punishment after the god Prometheus stole fire for the mortals. It is Pandora who frees disease, sorrow, and pain among humanity. Once again, we are seeing an explanation for bad things happening as being the result of women's actions. Mike Rugnetta suggests that what we are seeing is justification for why historically men have felt it is their right to rule over women, the myth being created to justify reality. We tell stories to figure out the world. We are constantly in acts of co-creation with one another, and there are stories in every culture about how death and evil came to the world. Sometimes it's an act of humans, usually women, that bring it about. Other times, it's an act of God. This isn't just a process of the ancient past. We still create stories to oppress others. We tell ourselves stories about what is right and what is wrong. We paint entire groups of people who believe, think, or dress a certain way as dangerous, as un-American, as the cause of evil. The stories we tell ourselves, our creation myths, shape the world we see around us in many ways, just as much as they are shaped by that world. We are creative, powerful, transforming beings. The stories that we tell one another about who we are and what our purpose is, these stories matter. What we create together matters. Human beings will always strive to create. I'm convinced that if some apocalyptic, world-destroying catastrophe happened today, there would still be people playing flutes and writing poetry. We humans would still create. We've even gotten to the point in our evolution and our skill development where we're creating the ability to create. How many of you have been hearing about the new artificial intelligence programs, such as ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT. So Virginia, Rev Jenn's wife, has been telling her a lot about them as some of her students seek to find new and innovative ways to cheat. Interestingly, ChatGPT isn't very good at cheating for her students, but that's another story. What is fascinating about programs like that, programs that can write poetry and essays, programs that can create artificial art, is that they are an indication of how strong the human desire to create remains. We are giving birth in a way to ever unique ways to create as we co-create and transform a world with what we have created. But these technologies are relatively new, so we have lots of questions. What are the ethics of having artificial intelligence write a poem, or of using art that robs a human creator of a commission? How do we address issues of giving credit for creative work? What does it mean for us if we cannot trace the origins of a new idea created by artificial intelligence? By creating something that can create, we have relinquished some control over the process and results. And that can be both awesome and scary. So there's no doubt we human beings have created something that will again transform the world, even as it continues to co-create that world within us. So what does that mean for us here at Tree of Life? So right now, we are standing on the edge of a new world. We don't know when the next minister will join us on our journey. We aren't sure what to do about the budget or the sinkhole. We are in the process of writing the next chapter of our story together. And as with any process of co-creation, we don't have complete control as individuals. We depend on one another to create this future world. My beloved spiritual companions, tell the stories of creation that remind you who you are. Tell the stories that give you hope. Tell the stories that remind you of your transforming power. Tell the stories of who you want to be. Believe in love. Believe in the value, the power, the transforming nature of what we are creating. What we are creating in our own lives and in our life together right here at Tree of Life. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.